Thanks, Anna. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this fabulous Capital Nature, City Nature Challenge event for discovering nature east of the river. We are delighted to have each and every one of you here. This is our third year, and every year it gets bigger and bigger. And we are also here to make sure that you get the support that you need to make this magnificent in your respective neighborhoods and areas. So I'm going to turn it over to Stella, who's done an incredible job of organizing this event every year. And Stella is with Capital Nature. And you guys, let's give her a round of applause. This is how you do it.
My plant is very happy when you do that. Brenda, thank you so much. And let's go ahead and key up the slides. Welcome, everyone, those of you that are here live, and if you're watching on recording a little bit later. So welcome to this introduction to the City Nature Challenge, especially east of the river. I'm Stella Tarnay, co-founder and executive director of Capital Nature, co-founder with Anna, who is managing the Zoom. And we'll tell you about the challenge, about the amazing nature east of the Anacostia River that we are looking forward to exploring with the challenge. And then you'll get to hear about the events that our great organizations are hosting. So,
hi, this is Nathan.
Did someone have a question? Okay. So just a little bit about us. As I mentioned, Anna and I are co-founders of Capital Nature, and our mission is to bring nature into the lives of Washington, D.C. area residents, especially those of us who live in urban areas. And we host original programs. We're big citizen science nerds. Anna does fabulous forest bathing walks. We do nature appreciation walks. And next, we also host a regional nature calendar. So if you look in the capitalnature.org calendar page, you'll see that this event is listed, as well as many other really exciting nature programs that you can enjoy. So do check that out, capitalnature.org calendar, and a lot of the other pages. Next. And why are we doing this? Because there's a world of amazing nature out there, including here on Kingman Island, which is a surprising island that created itself in the middle of the city, in the middle of one of the most urbanized areas of the Mid-Atlantic. Next. And also because it's a great way to discover nature is through citizen science. And we'll be telling you more about that here in just a couple of highlight scenes from City Nature Challenges just a few years ago before the pandemic. Next. So what is citizen science? Many of you on this call know, but if you're new, citizen science is an observation activity during which curious and concerned people gather data on topics they care about. And it's really hundreds and even thousands of years old. On the right, you see an amateur astronomer, a citizen scientist who has been making discoveries even today. And some of the most important astronomical discoveries and weather observations, such as those on the left, have been made by citizen scientists. Next. And everyone can be a citizen scientist. Billy Barr on the left was a recluse who decided that he preferred mountains to people. So he moved out to Colorado 45 years ago and he started observing the weather. And his observations were so good that they are now being used by professional scientists to track changes in the weather due to climate change. So a single citizen scientist can have a great importance to science. More often, citizen scientists also work in groups, such as these water quality monitors in Rock Creek Park. Next. I have a little delay on the slide, so sorry about that. So why is citizen science important? As you might guess, it supports science. It also connects us to the living world and often can support community well-being and the environment. And it even helps our park management people and our policy folks manage places better because we provide valuable data to them and it teaches us about the local environment. Next. And in particular, why participate in the City Nature Challenge? Well, let's face it, we all need more healthy time outdoors. You'll learn about the many species in and around the Washington, D.C. area. You will contribute to that scientific research, and you'll even learn a cool new app Extra bonus, you might help the DC area win in a friendly citizen science competition. Next. So this is the City Nature Challenge coming up. It's both a global and a very local event. You can find the global site at citynaturechallenge.org and the regional site at citynaturechallengedc.org. And it is a citizen science event. Many thousands of people participate in it. And the goal is really to identify as many wild species as we can within our urban area. Next. And it is also a BioBlitz. So a BioBlitz is an intense survey during a particular time of a defined area, often of a single species, and sometimes the abundance of life, which is what we'll be doing. So it's a very focused period of time when we all go out to see what we can find, whether that's frogs or birds or the multitude of life. Next. The area that we'll be looking in is not only east of the river, but DC itself, and actually the whole metropolitan area that'll extend all the way out to Loudoun County, Montgomery County, and beyond, because it is a metropolitan urban area where both people and other species live. Next. And so the dates to keep in mind, April 29th through May 2nd is our observation period. May 3rd through 8th, we'll be uploading our observations and also identifying, because sometimes it's easy to observe, it's harder to identify the species. And on May 9th, the global results will be announced. And as you see, a lot of organizations are involved in this year's City Nature Challenge. This is just a highlight of some of them, and you'll meet some of the org representatives during this Zoom. Next. So we'll be looking for kind of 3 areas of life: animals, plants, and fungi. So pretty much everything the human eye can see. Next. And where will we be looking? Well, we'll be looking for signs of life in local parks, backyards, stoops, community gardens, and neighborhoods. Next. And observing wherever wild plants, animals, and fungi make their home. For example, this humble stone wall on the left, which is a wall just 2 blocks from where I live. In this little area, if you look closely, you will find plants, animals, as well as fungi. So you just need to start looking more closely. And of course, pigeons are everywhere. Indeed, they're wild, they're qualified for observation. And this very charismatic river otter, picture Anacostia in Huntley Meadows. So a total abundance of life that's out there waiting to be discovered. Next. And we'll be, if you could go back one, Anna. And we'll also be looking more closely at the nature that we already appreciate. You know, I think a lot of us really appreciate the kind of well-being we get when we walk in our parks. DC has wonderful parks, the kind of feeling of health that we feel. But it's not just for our enjoyment. There's a whole ecosystem of life that's happening. So for the City Nature Challenge, not only will we be appreciating the benefits that we get as humans, but we'll be getting to know that nature better. So here, one of my favorite parks in the region is Eleanor C. Lawrence Park. Some of you have walked there with me. And if you look more closely at the sea of green, you might see blooming pawpaw trees. You might see particular bugs and insects. You might hear a robin, and then you look and you'll see where it's perching, and an abundance of vines, mushrooms, and all kinds of other life. Next. We'll be using iNaturalist. So we're all nature nerds on this call, and iNaturalist is a really fun app that was developed by scientists and is supported by National Geographic and the California Academy of Sciences. It's an app that people all over the world are using to make observations. It's also a platform where people can share their knowledge, share their observations, and it's a growing virtual community of nature observers. Next. And there are a lot of people on iNaturalist. So around the globe, more than 3 million people have signed up, and currently there are over 2 million users. Many thousand are in the Washington, DC area. Next. So what you'll need to use iNaturalist is actually really quite simple. So you can use your cell phone camera, which is what I do. I'm not a big photographer, but I get really pretty good observations with my cell phone camera. And you can also use your digital camera. Catherine Schultz there on the right is actually a very well-known nature observer and scientist, and she gets gorgeous observations with her digital camera, and we're all in awe of them. But not all of us have to be serious photographers to get good observations. Next. So in addition, you'll need access to the internet, and then you can access iNaturalist either via the internet at inaturalist.org, or you can download the app onto your platform. So your iPad, your phone, that sort of thing. Next.
Oh, did it skip?
Yep. Go back. So it kind of takes 2 minutes to get on iNaturalist. First thing you need to do is just set up your handle, your account. So here I set up a sample account that took me about 1 minute, got a password, and I was ready to start. Next. And this is what observing looks like. You literally can just focus with your cell phone camera and make an observation. Next. And this is what an observation looks like. So I don't know if many of you know, but we have over 40 species of violets, wild native violets in the Washington area. So this is an observation of one of them. They're all around right now. So this observer took a cell phone picture of that violet, and then they uploaded it on their phone, which is one of the ways you can do this, onto their iNaturalist app. And then the violet came up because iNaturalist actually uses artificial intelligence, as well as an accumulation of observations. So it gets smarter with time, and it gives you a set of suggestions. So to me, this looks like a common blue violet. So I might, out of that choice, choose common blue violet, and I probably would be right. The cool thing that iNaturalist does next is that it puts your observation out there, and as long as 1 or 2 people agree with you that that is indeed that species of violet, your observation becomes research grade, and then it becomes of interest to scientists. And your observation will then go into the data of life of the planet. Next. And this is a wonderful picture that Anna took of an eastern painted turtle. And this is a somewhat more kind of advanced view of an observation. And you can see this on your desktop. And Anna, I wonder if you could just spend a minute to just highlight some of the cool features that iNaturalist has if you want to go a little bit deeper.
Sure. So if you're looking at it on the desktop, you can see that I've made a guess of what I think what I think the species is. You can see that another iNaturalist user, one of our local experts, Luca Reptile, he agreed with that. So two out of the three people we cumulatively agreed. So that's how we got to research grade up here. Up here, it also shows the location where it was sighted, also surrounded by other points of other observations. And so when you're on this particular view on the desktop, there's just a robust collection of information that can be curated for each observation.
Thanks a lot. Next. And you know, sometimes when you take a picture, just one picture is enough. So I love this picture of a happy fat squirrel. I'm imagining that's similar to Starbucks because I've seen ones that look like this at Starbucks. But one picture will tell you that's an eastern gray squirrel, right? And of course, how can anybody miss this beautiful photograph of a monarch butterfly? So sometimes all you need is one picture, and you and everyone else will be able to see what that species is. Next. Sometimes, though, you need a few more views. So with oak trees, for example, there's such an abundance of oaks that you may guess it's an oak just by the leaf. But if you add the acorn and the bark and the shape of the tree, iNaturalists and other observers will be able to tell whether that's a white oak or a red oak. And among the red oak species, which this is, what other species within the red oak family could this be? So the more views, the better, and you can upload 4 or 5 images to each observation. Next. And of course, there are mushrooms which kind of look different at the top, or sometimes very much the same from the top, and then only looking underneath will tell you. And Anna, do you want to share your trick for figuring out how to?
I like to, most people just kind of shoot down when they take pictures of the mushroom, which getting just the cap is not enough information really to identify. So I get out my little fashion mirror there with some lights and shine it up underneath so you can see if it has gills or if it has pores. And then it's also really important to see what the stipe or the stem looks like and how it's attached and where it's located. So just getting a couple perspectives is going to help people get to that identification.
Thanks. Next.
Oops, sorry, it keeps skipping. Sorry.
I know, fast finger. And I'm sharing this, so if you really get ambitious and you want to get out on the Anacostia River, of course, you can always take photographs of crayfish. And Jorge Bogandes Matero shared this set of images with us. You can get really good if you want to tell the various crayfish species apart. And if you ever want to know how to do that, Jorge is on this call and you can ask him. And if you ever make this observation, if anybody identifies it for you, it probably will be Jorge. So thanks for sharing those. Next. One of the questions scientists will ask when they consider an observation, is it wild or is it captive? So if you see an animal in your backyard, they might be the same backyard, but which of these do you think is wild? The one on the left or on the right? Just put it in the chat. Is anybody volunteering? It's pretty obvious. So just in case I can't really see the chat from here. So of course it's the fox, right? Because it got there of its own volition. Thank you, Mike. I can see your answer floating very quickly across my screen. And although Lonnie here on the right thinks she's a wild creature, unfortunately for iNaturalists, she is considered captive. So fox would be considered wild, a domestic dog would be captive. And the scientists are really most interested in the wild observation, but you do need to mark it either way. Next. And you will also want to mark plants, whether they are wild or cultivated. So these are 3 examples of wild plant sightings. On the left, the beautiful bluebells that I saw in a park. Actually, this would have been last spring, so I hope to see them again. Then here in the center, you've got the dogwoods and the redbuds in Rock Creek Park. And on the right, a fleabane growing out of the sidewalk in my neighborhood. So all of these, because they got there on their own, would be considered wild plants. Next. But the dogwood on the left, even though it's a native plant, because it's planted in a yard, or the native orchid on the right, even though it's a wild native type of orchid, because it's planted by a human, it would be considered cultivated. So you just need to mark it as that. And the tulips are pretty obvious. Next. But the great thing about finding even cultivated species is that there's a lot of wildlife on them. So Anna, can you just highlight what's growing on this plant? And also if you know what this bush is, maybe you can highlight that
Sure.
as well.
Yeah, this was at the local library where we were making observations. So even though we were at the pollinator garden and those things were planted, I told everybody that it was fair game of things that were on the plant. So we have this this lady beetle on the left, and then we have a fungus, a tar fungus on this is this red maple? Yeah, it looks like a red maple.
Yeah,
Red maple tree.
yeah. So once you start observing even cultivated plants, there's a lot that you can see. Next. And of course, there are these signs of life, right? So even though it's great to have this very sophisticated portrait from the left and the right and underneath, sometimes even a fragment of a finding or scat or a skeleton, a piece of wing or a feather is enough to be able to identify a species. So those are a lot of fun to find and to post on iNaturalist. Next. And iNaturalist also now accepts audio. So for the City Nature Challenge, you'd actually be able to post, for example, the sound of a crow and help iNaturalists know, as well as your fellow observers, to know, well, is it a fish crow or is it an American crow? Because they actually have different sounds. So your audio recording, in addition to the picture, will really complete a full observation. You know, I could do a crow sound, but I'll do that as a Betty at the end if we have time. How you can tell a fish crow from an American crow. Next.
Oops, wait. Okay.
Yeah. So again, just reiterating that there is so much to observe: birds, squirrels, cottontails, salamanders, frogs, lizards, turtles, wildflowers, beetles, caterpillars, fungi, lichen, even slime mold. So just take a look out there and see what you can document. Next. You can participate individually or in a group, which is one of the great things about the City Nature Challenge. Next. And then kind of asking you, what will you discover when you look down this path? For example, in Eleanor C. Lawrence Park, again, if you look more closely, what do you think you might discover once you start really looking closely? Next. And just to inspire us, these are some global results from last year. We had almost 1.3 million observations, over 45,000 species were documented, and over 52,000 people participated. So there's a lot of observation, a lot of great discoveries being made every year. And this is the 7th year of the City Nature Challenge. It started out with 2 cities 7 years ago, San Francisco and Los Angeles, and it's grown by leaps and bounds so that this year over 400 cities are participating and over 40 countries are represented. Next. And these are highlights from some of our findings locally from last year. And one of my favorites there, the mayapple you see second from the left, that's a native species. And unfortunately to the left, garlic mustard, equally observed and invasive. So it's good to know where those invasives are, and maybe you can get a stewardship team out there to pull them out. And of course, an abundance of local birds. If you go deeper into iNaturalist, though, you can see some of the less frequent sightings, the mammals, the turtles, the lizards, and it's really fun to see what's there that might be hiding under the leaves that maybe only 2 or 3 people discovered in the course of the challenge. Next. And one of the rare finds was made by Luca, a high school student, several years ago during the pandemic. He discovered a white-spotted slimy salamander, hadn't been seen in 40 years. And maybe because it was the pandemic, fewer people were out and about. This salamander, thought perhaps to have been gone from Arlington County, was rediscovered, and it was a great find. Next. Our friend Carrie Seltzer, who might be on this call, decided to devote her time during the pandemic to observe the biodiversity in her backyard, just a small yard in Northeast DC. And she made over 3,000 observations, found over 600 species, some of it with the help of her daughter and her husband. But it's amazing, again, once you start looking, what you can find. Next. Our friend Vince decided to explore what he said were the less glamorous species in his neighborhood and his backyard. So he started paying attention to the weeds and to the robins and to the common ferns that made their way up in his yard. Next. And I really focused in on that old stone wall in the alley 2 blocks from where I live. And I really started paying attention to the mosses, the lichen, the ferns, those insects, and all those things that make their life there. And you can see them on my account in iNaturalist, quite a few of them. Next. So now we're moving to nature east of the river. And we think this is really inspiring and important because although many thousands of observations have been made, not enough of them have been made east of the river. So that's why we're here inviting you to participate and help us document the abundance of life that exists there. Next. And I want to thank Jorge for these amazing helicopter photos. So you see this beautiful kind of marshy water, dry land combination landscape that in some ways kind of marks east of the river, especially around the Anacostia River itself. Next. And also the neighborhoods, which are still quite abundant with trees, many things to observe, even if you step away from the official nature areas. Next. And Kingman Island, which is such an interesting place to explore. Next. And speaking of Kingman Island, thanks to Laura Nunn, we have these lovely pictures. She and her children go out to explore, and they find all kinds of things in the puddles, in the marshes, in the grass, under the trees. Next. For example, wiggly things and swimming things. And because kids are close to the ground, often they may be the first ones to find something interesting. Next. And of course, we have the great egrets on the left. I shouldn't say, of course, it's such a special find. And the osprey on the right. And I suppose if you were lucky, you might even be able to identify the fish. But these beautiful birds, waterfowl that live in and around the Anacostia River. And these amazing pictures were taken by Dan Rausch, the wildlife biologist at DOEE. Next. And or you may be able to find the signs of life. Laura, are you able to speak for a moment about what you found here?
Sure. These were on kind of the way off the beaten path at Kingman, but we found these the turtle
I think you might be frozen.
shaft
Can
is.
other people hear Laura?
Let's
Can you hear
Laura,
me?
try again. Oh,
Laura?
we might have lost her audio.
Uh, So happy to have other people chime in. I think on the right is markings of beaver nose on a tree. The skeleton in the center, I would like someone to take a guess. Maybe Jorge, do you want to guess what that is?
Or Alonzo.
That looks like deer.
Uh-huh. Could be, Laura might even know if we get her back in. Of course, a turtle shell on the left.
And Laura can put
So
it in the chat too if she is having problems with audio.
Would you? Wonderful. So really, you know, when you start looking again, these are not living things, but they certainly show signs of life. Next. And the beautiful Anacostia River bank, which we have not explored before in this part, and we'll hear about that in just a little while. But you know, there's that special ecology that happens when land meets water, and the banks of the Anacostia River, especially when they're restored, really are host to riparian and aquatic life, and it's really quite something to behold. Next. And our beautiful Oxen Run Park, one of our favorite parks in the DPR system, the largest number of cherry trees beyond the tidal basin, and of course, many paths to explore. Next.
Oops, sorry, hold on.
Or then just sitting in the amphitheater, relaxing. But in the background, these beautiful tall trees that we know by now, of course, are host to an abundance of life. Next. And if you look in the cracks, so you see this little tulip tree trying to make its way out of the rocks. I'm not sure it's going to have success, but Casey took this great picture. Life happens everywhere, and the turtle on the right, if you just bother to look. Next. And there's fortunately a very controlled stream that currently runs through Oxen Run Park. It's got a cement bottom, so not much goes on there, but the banks are just overflowing, often with weeds, but they're still wild, all kinds of wild plant and insect species. And this is a view from our first City Nature Challenge over there 3 years ago. Next. And although many of the trees are planted, so we would have to mark them as cultivated, they host a lot of wildlife. So imagine there on the left, the river birch, all kinds of insects find little homes underneath that paper, that kind of paper bark. So that's always a good place to look. Of course, in the center, a little burrow. I'd be curious to know what's making its home there, and all kinds of lichen and moss growing directly on the bark of those trees. Next. And if you look under the trees and in the grass, you can find mushrooms, wildflowers, and even this, I believe that's a blue azure butterfly that makes its way in the early spring. So look up, look down, all kinds of things to find. Next. And if you go further into the woods, this is kind of a well-known secret, at least known to some, but not that many people. There's a really rich fern forest within Oxen Run Park, and even a magnolia bog. So there's a lot of rich biodiversity if you get just a little bit off the path. Next. And then moving on to Oxen Cove, as the stream flows, another kind of ecosystem with its own abundance of life, meadows, and then forests. Next. And you might find an abundance of bird species. And Anna, do you want to go ahead and take a try at these?
Oh, we had is it black bearded wood, a blue warbler? I looked this one up. I haven't seen this one up on the upper left.
We know it's a warbler. We're not sure which one.
I saw it again yesterday. So if anybody knows, and then we have, looks like a downy woodpecker in the bottom left, and then an oriole on the right. So lots of biodiversity.
Beautiful. And again, Dan's amazing photographs. So these all live east of the river, and we would love to see them documented. Next. And if you go into the more kind of, the creek areas where there are marshes and also these kind of beaches, next. You may see, of course, the great blue heron, and what a gorgeous bird that is. And I'm sure that if you go to that part of Oxen Cove and beyond Oxen Run Park, you will see these. Next. And we have many community gardens east of the river. And Watani, thanks for these photographs of Blair Road Community Garden. As you see, there's a lot of insect life once you start looking in and around the plants that could be documented. Next. And of course, Marvin Gaye Park, again, a lot of wonderful planted trees, which are native to the area, would have to be marked as cultivated, but still you can observe a lot of things on those trees. And Casey from DDOT is letting us know that the pop-up arboretum at Marvin Gaye Park is almost ready. So you can go and observe those trees and then see what's living around them. Next. And if you're walking down the path at Marvin Gaye Park, I would love for somebody to guess what this is a sign of.
Beaver.
Beaver.
That's right. So you don't need to you don't need to see the beaver to observe beaver activity and beaver signs of life for iNaturalist. And there's a very active family right there by the McDonald's, isn't that right? So we can hear about that a bit later. Next. And of course, Fort DuPont, which is this amazing, huge park that really has not been observed enough. And particularly for DuPont, we're very interested to see what City Nature Challenge observers might find there. Next. And this is Scott May last year preparing for his City Nature Challenge observation. Scott is a member of Outdoor Afro and also is a middle school science teacher in a charter school east of the river. So he was interested to see what he might show his students. Believe it or not, that tree on the left is in the parking lot, not in the park itself, but already has all this, this lichen that can be observed. And then of course, plants close to the ground, very, very early spring, just barely out of winter when he was preparing. Next. And again, to show you what's possible. So here, obviously, this is an American holly that can be observed. But then even more interesting are the leaf miners. You can see the squiggles there in the leaf. That's leaf miner activity. So you could observe that as well for iNaturalist. Next. Okay, I need some help with species here. Winter or spring, you can see these in east of the river parks.
Look like barred owl and a raven,
Barred.
Carrie.
So you guys think it's a
Barred.
raven or a crow?
I was gonna say American crow. I mean, I'm assuming.
I was guessing raven only just because of
I
the
don't know.
scruffy neck, but I could be wrong.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't really
Does
know.
Carrie
A
know?
raven. It was a raven.
Okay,
Raven,
cool.
yeah.
Oh,
That's a silhouette. So it's-
Thank you, Carrie. Next. And of course, the audio would be very, right? And anybody who knows Fort DuPont knows that there's this famous or infamous flock of wild turkeys that makes their home there. Again, a Dan Rausch masterpiece of a photograph. And so there's a good chance you might be able to observe and document at least a member of the flock. Next. And I believe this is a question mark. Is that right, Carrie?
Yeah. Funnily enough, that the butterfly is called a question mark.
I thought, was that a question? You should have said, was that a question? So this is one of the few butterflies that you'll see out in early spring, but you can observe it, they overwinter, and you can see from the buds that you could probably make this observation during the City Nature Challenge if you got lucky. Next. I love that picture, Carrie. And how can we forget DC state bird, the wood thrush? If you walk quietly in the woods and parks east of the river and DC in general, you might hear it, you might see it. It would take a lot of quietness and a lot of observation, but it would be a great one to make. Next. And then there's Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens, one of the most beautiful, really kind of a jewel of DC. And of course, it's a man-made environment. Next. So observing the lilies wouldn't be so fantastic, but if you were in a neighborhood around Kenilworth, there are a lot of trees, a lot of native landscape that you could observe, or even in the lawns, you can find things to observe. Next. And going back to Kenilworth, you look between those lilies, and I challenge somebody to identify the species that's smack in the middle of the photo on the left, and everybody's looking away from it at the lilies. Do you guys see it?
Great blue heron.
I can see it.
Huh?
It's a blue heron.
Almost. The second part was right.
Great heron.
Green heron. Yes, we're getting close. So that's a green heron, and it was walking like a mime, like in slow motion, waiting to catch that fish in the middle of all this human activity. And it was really quite an experience to watch it. And on the right, okay, I admit this was July, but I did see a monarch and I couldn't help but take the picture. So you won't see it in the spring, but go later and you can see that at Kenilworth. Next. Lots to see in Kenilworth. And I don't know if we have somebody from the Friends of Kenilworth here tonight, but they sent us these really beautiful photographs. You can see bullfrogs and all kinds of frog species, the skink on the right. Next. And all kinds of insects in between the reeds and the leaves and the flowers. Next. And there's also a lot of aquatic life because it is such a wet environment. So they're used to people collecting macroinvertebrates as part of an observation event. Next. And I think we might be up to the kids. So with that, just want to say, really, observers of all ages are encouraged, invited to observe, whether it's at Kenilworth, the forests of DuPont, the Anacostia River, Kingman Island, any of the great natural environments east of the river that are waiting for observation and documentation. And with this, I will turn it over to Brenda.
Thank you, Stella. What a wonderful presentation. I always love seeing all those photos. Jorge, I'm just curious, how did you get those aerial views of those neighborhoods?
Yeah, that was the helicopter flight. They do it every year. The National Park Service police from Anacostia Park, from the heliport. We tagged along a couple of years, and that was the year I went. I took those photos, and yep, we always see the river from the water or land, and this was a different view from the air, which was pretty cool.
Fantastic. And Jorge, what are you doing this year?
So yeah,
the City Nature Challenge.
Yeah, we have 3 events. So on Friday, the 29th, we will be at Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens with Shanna and partners from Audubon Naturalist Society. We're going to be doing aquatic surveys because we've seen that was very popular when we did it when we've done it in past years. So surveying mussels, crayfish, macroinvertebrate, and doing a demonstration, showing them in a tank, and sort of engaging with people as they come in the park. There might be some pre-registration, but we want to engage with the people that come to the park, the visitors. So that's going to be our approach on that day. We're going to be there for most of the day, and on Saturday, the 30th, we will be at Fort DuPont Park, sort of in a mini bio blitz with different experts leading hikes, and we will have some tables answering questions, and yeah, pretty much. And then on Sunday, our partners from Friends of Guilford Woods, they saved this tract of forest from being developed by the University of Maryland. They have, this is the second year they do a sort of a mini bio blitz with us. It's more oriented to kids. That's what they did last year. And yeah, they will be it's mostly a floodplain forest. So checking out the woods there and the creek, and one of our educators will be there. I probably will be there as a visitor, not as a staff, so taking that day off, at least from AWS work. And but yeah, those are our three events.
Thank you. That sounds really exciting. And we're looking forward to working with you to have a Muscle Beach in Oxen Cove. Watani, what are you up to?
So we're looking to activate Oxen Run Park again with Brenda and the Friends of Oxen Run. So on Saturday, we will be having an event there with some of the children part of the program. And we're looking to do what we did last year, find some species that haven't been found before, or at least put onto the map. So looking forward to having that activation in Ward 8. This year, we're going to be doing Ward 7 as well. So we're looking to do Pope Branch Trail, which is the district's first unpaved trail that we put into our inventory about, what year is this? About 4 years ago. So hopefully we have about 50 folks who will be down inside Pope Branch Trail to do some observations there. It's an amazing space. You know, driving by, you would never know that this little parcel of land exists. It is the upper part of Pope Branch Trail. I'm not sure how far the group will go, but there is a middle part and a lower part of Pope Branch Trail that hopefully we can get some observations as well throughout the weekend. Something that is not official is we are working with our youth development division to get them to work with their divisions to see if we can get some observations during the weekend and the weekdays.
Fantastic. So Watani, I've never been to Pope Branch, so I'm looking forward to joining you for that one as well.
Oh.
Mike, thank you, Watani. Mike, what's happening with UDC?
Yeah, so the UDC DC Master Naturalists are going to be really active in the City Nature Challenge at Oxen Run and Pope Branch. So they're going to be helping out with collecting iNaturalist data for biodiversity to support community science initiatives. And we're really excited for that. So we had a special class designated to really just learn about iNaturalist and the City Nature Challenge. So they're going to get a lot of their, it's a wonderful merit-based certification. So a part of that program is based off of service and stewardship, and they can get a lot of their hours through that weekend by identifying a lot of our biodiversity and our fellow creatures amongst our urban ecosystems.
Fantastic. We look forward to that. Vaughn, are you and Richard working on the same event together?
Yes, we are. And so I didn't get a chance to go out with them last week, but basically we are going to be activating a section in Anacostia Park, and I'll let Richard chime in of exactly where, and just really being able to document some of the living species that are in the Anacostia Park area. So Richard, did I miss anything? Oh, it'll be April the 30th. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Did I miss anything, Richard?
Thanks, Vaughn. I appreciate you. So I first wanted to say I'm so glad that I found this community of naturalists and nature freaks, because I grew up kind of a sheltered kid who was afraid of bugs and everything like that. So Anna and Stella and I walked through the park last week, and they were blowing my mind, man, just pointing out all these different species. And so I really depend on folks like you to keep pulling me out of my comfort zone. And so the actual event is, like Vaughn said, going to be on April 30th from 10 to 2. The area is the boat dock right by the Anacostia Skating Pavilion and about 50 yards south. So basically that part of the shoreline where you can look across and see the Seafarers Yacht Club. So just a pretty small little strip, but really, really lush and full of life. You know, Friends of Anacostia Park, we're all about helping the community feel a sense of ownership over the park. And a part of, you know, helping the community feel that sense of ownership means pointing out the natural splendor in everyone's backyard. So really excited about this. I won't be there for the actual event on the 30th, but we'll be back hopefully by Sunday.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard and Vaughn. Great stuff. Laura, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was having audio problems earlier. We at Kingman, Friends of Kingman is partnering with Living Classrooms to host a special edition of Kingman Explorers. Well, we will do a frog walk and go around the islands and listen to frogs. And that's going to be the Wednesday before the observation period. And during that session, I'll be walking. This is a family program, so mostly for kids and parents. I'll be walking the parents through how to use iNaturalist and getting them ready to do observations over the weekend.
That is so cool. Thank you, Laura. Nathan, what is Ward 8 Woods gonna do? Nathan, are you there? Okay. So we'll move on. Anna, did you want to share anything?
I think my events have been covered. I'm really excited to be working with Watani at the Pope Branch walk. I'm going to pop by Jorge's event at Fort DuPont. I want to check that out too. And then after that, this is all on Saturday. Then I'm going to go to Oxen Run, obviously, and lead the walk there. So I'm just really excited to go to all these different parks.
And we'll be waiting for you, Anna.
Yeah.
Janet and Tom, is there anything that you'd like to share? Janet?
Yeah, hi. I'm Janet, and I'm a little farther east of the river in Prince George's County, and we're going to be doing a few activities at Watkins Regional Park and also at Greenbelt National Park. So if there's anybody listening who wants to join us for those, you can find those things on our Sierra Club website, and we'd love to have more folks join us and make more observations in Prince George's County this year. So I'm really excited to hear all the things that you're doing, and you're inspiring me to go out and get more people to come to our small events out in Prince George's County. So have fun.
Can I just say something? Welcome, Janet. So glad to hear about your events. Our local DC City Nature Challenge DC website, we have set it up so that we can list the different events that are going on. And so if we follow up with you after this, can we get you there's a little link where you just enter in your event information, and that'll just populate on our map so that when people
I did that already.
Oh, you did it? Okay, great. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Tom, what have you to share?
Hi, not a lot. First of all, I want to apologize for being late. Had some little technical glitch, but here I am. Just an interested party. I've heard a number of you guys speak in different places. Richard Trent, I think I heard you spoke. I've heard him talk before, and William, I think I've read about you in Parks and Recreation, or read about you guys in the paper, and yeah, just really excited about some of the stuff that's going on east of the river. And I'm looking forward to, looks like somebody, I think Anna was maybe putting together a list of what all that's going on, and maybe picking and choosing, going to some of the places I haven't been. Always wanted to get to Upper Pope Branch, and always wanted to poke a little bit around Fort DuPont. And so hopefully I can show up there with my iPhone and a decent attitude.
Fantastic, Tom. We'll see you at Pope Branch. So we've got two more people. Ab, what would you like to share? And then Carrie. Ab?
Yes, you have to give me a chance to unmute myself. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank Stella for the fantastic presentation. And so my question is that going to be available is that PowerPoint presentation going to be available to us? That's number one. The second thing is that
I wanted to know where this park is, where she saw the blooming pawpaw trees, because she knows I'm a pawpaw freak, or if she doesn't know that, that's one of the things I'm trying to get planted in Oxen Run Park. And I was told that there's something down at on the Potomac River, further on down where there's some pawpaw trees, but apparently you know of some that are closer in. But if you could share that information with me, I would appreciate that, Stella. And then the final thing is, I'm really
I
excited.
myself love. Sorry,
Pardon?
please.
What were you saying, Stella?
Please continue. Jump in.
Okay. The final thing is, I'm really excited about this, and I've talked to the community or relations specialist in my apartment complex today. And so, Anna, I'm going to be seeing if I can get you to help us to prepare some children to come to the event at our apartment complex. We have a van and we can bring 13 to 15 of them down, but I'd like to get them to get some kind of help in terms of what we'd be doing. So if you're available, I would love to have you come and work with us so that we can start getting them interest, because we all know that we need more Black children involved in this whole environmental and naturalist efforts. So that's something I'm excited about. And by the way, I enjoyed myself last year, even though we didn't make it to the Magnolia Bog, but we did make it to the Fern Forest, Stella. So, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Ab. Carrie and then Haley. Carrie, so happy to see you.
Hey everyone. I have not firmly committed my plans yet for the weekend, but I really love Fort DuPont. I'm hoping to make it there for the AWS event. Last year I visited Oxen Run and saw some fabulous things as we ventured into the Magnolia Bog, and I really hope to make it back there too. And I will try to drop a link in chat to a map of all of the pawpaw observations that have been made in DC. So hang tight for a minute for that.
Oh, you will make Ab a very happy man, Carrie. Haley, what has the young person have to say?
This is so much pressure going after everyone. So this year, KC Trees really wanted to be involved with the City Nature Challenge. So we will be helping to ID specimens after the challenge. And this will be a really great opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone with like trees and other easier to identify species and look into some of what Stella was talking about, like mosses, lichens, all of these little flowers, all of these, species for pollinators that are so important and often overlooked, underappreciated little guys. And also just reflect on the unique conditions present, like the weird weather we've been having this year, the fact that cherry blossoms peaked and are past peak now before red buds have even bloomed is really interesting. So that's all useful observations and just a great opportunity to reflect on the diversity that I think we're just so fortunate in DC to have, I'm like from New York, so there are beautiful natural areas there, but just nowhere near the green space in a metropolitan area that you get in DC. So, and so we'll be helping ID species. I'm really excited to see everything that people come up with. And it will be an opportunity, selfishly, for me to do some bird ID, which I never get to do. So birds are just a personal passion of mine. So very excited for that.
Thank you, Haley.
And also, if anyone wants a pawpaw tree, I can see if our farm has any inventory and if they're available, because we do plant pawpaws. So casual plug.
Oh my
Haley,
goodness.
Brenda, if I could ask Haley something, she mentioned something that got me excited. So I hope that we can hook up with her later on to address some questions that some points that she's making. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. What a great variety of events that we have this year.
Brenda, I'm so excited that just the programs that are presented here, if only each of us singly went out to explore the areas that we described, we would come back with an abundance of observations. So the fact that each of us represents 10, 20 observers that will be joining us means that we're really going to start documenting the rich biodiversity east of the river. And that just really thrills me. And engaging community members and neighbors to do that is just a wonderful project we're all on. So very excited to have all of you here and to hear about your project. I have a couple of little lobbying points. So one is, if Mike is on, Mike, I wonder if you would be willing to divert a couple of your master naturalists to Anacostia Park. Brenda, not to take anyone away from you, but we would love to see some master naturalists on Anacostia Park helping guide people, because I think we could potentially have a big audience. So just if you have a few extra hands, I'd love to invite them. Second,
Sure, I'm making a
Yeah,
note
go
of
ahead.
that. Yep.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, we will divert some to the Anacostia as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll look forward to that. And Anna and I will be sitting there with Vaughn from 10 to 12, and I may be staying there longer that day on the 30th. So I can report that there's one pawpaw tree for Ab in Dumbarton Oaks Park, but it has never fruited. It's it's like a lone tree. It's a lonely tree. It needs a partner. So maybe Haley, you can help the folks over at Dumbarton Oaks Park get a second pawpaw so they can finally start reproducing.
Pimping the pawpaws. Pimping the pawpaws. I love it. Sorry.
That is
That's
the
great.
weirdest thing I now get to tell people on like a first date or a party. It's like, I hope trees get together. It's fine. Yeah, we have a few pawpaws at the office actually. One is large enough to fruit, and one is a little guy. He's on his way. He's about 4.5 feet tall now. So.
And I can say that I photographed pawpaw for the blossoms at Theodore Roosevelt Island.
Oh,
So
I didn't see any.
I know that I've been out there on walks with Melanie Chukas Bradley, and I've taken pictures out there too.
There's
And
so
my
much to be
second
seen in
big
DC when
point
you
is
don't
that
just drive past
I would-
something.
I would also like to invite all of us to see if we can get any observations in community gardens. Last year, I think, Watani, you were orienting people toward the garden that I pictured, but right now we don't have any formal observations of community gardens. And there's so many of them east of the river that even if we could just ourselves go out and try to document some bee pollinators, some worms, beetles, whatever's buzzing out there, I think that would be a great contribution. Or if there's a master naturalist, Mike, I wish you had 10 times more people than you do. But
Well,
if one of them
actually,
wants
you
to
know what?
create
This
a
is a really
project-
good. This is a really good point. So I think we're gonna have to extend the invite to all of our DC Master Gardeners who will be in those community gardens, and to have them focus on that.
Also,
love
some of
that.
the folks from Parks and People and Life Pieces to Masterpieces have a really great community garden at near Marvin Gaye Park. So they have potatoes and other plants that are flowering, and they're planting the spring crop now. So maybe, yeah, that could be an opportunity.
I actually know some DC Master Naturalists at that community garden, so we can ask them to pay special attention.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
And
You know,
and
Indoor
Mike's-
gardens.
and Mike, for the Master Gardeners, you know, we have a few more trainings like this left. You know, I'm doing one on the 12th. Carrie's doing one on the 20th. Saranella and I are doing one on the 25th. So like if they, plus we'll have these recordings that will of this evening's event and the previous trainings we've done. So there'll be lots of, you know, ways that they can learn in advance.
And I think that takes me to the next part. In case people watch this recording and they're not familiar with all the activities, Anna, do you think you could call up the final slide?
Sure.
That's got some of the resources on there.
Sure.
I know that'll take just a moment.
See it?
Yes, thanks. So for next steps, if you happen to be a viewer who is kind of thinking about the City Nature Challenge and you're thinking, what should I do next? So here are a few ideas. So you've seen this video. Next, I would invite you to visit citynaturechallengedc.org, and there you can find an abundance of resources and also a lot of the events that we're talking about. Thanks to our friends at DDOT, the Tree Division, We're also going to have a story map of East River City Nature Challenge locations. So we'll add that to that regional website. So that'll be coming soon. We just need to get everybody's locations precisely for the map, and then some inviting pictures that'll make people want to go out. So that'll be ready in about a week or so. And then the trainings that Anna mentioned, April 12th. Sorry, I didn't put that in, Anna. That'll be at noon, April 20th, and then April 25th. And all of those are also listed on that regional website to get the Zoom links. Of course, don't forget to sign up for iNaturalist, get that handle and password, and start practicing observations. That's really the fun part. It's a little bit scary. Every year I get a little nervous, like, am I going to make good observations? And then I go out and I re-practice, and then it becomes like a secondhand activity. I can't stop making observations. So just go out there and start doing it. And then save the dates, April 29th, through May 2nd. And those are the big observation days. So that's kind of all I have.
Can I add something,
So,
Stella?
Anna, back to you.
Yeah,
Go
can I
ahead.
add something, Stella?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to add that, while the observation period is from April 29th to May 2nd, we'll have until May 8th to make identifications. So if anyone is interested in a specific taxa, knows their birds, knows their bugs, knows their herps, we definitely encourage, even if you can't get out and make observations yourself, we could definitely use your help on identifications. And we will be having a sort of a practice virtual identification party that is also going to be listed on our website, so you can learn tips and tricks on making observations using iNaturalist. Thanks.
And I
Brenda,
think with that, we can go back.
I have just
if
one
there are
question before, just one
questions.
question, Steph. You indicated that you can download the iNaturalist to your phone. What about a tablet?
Yep.
That's a yes, but Anna
Thank
is
you.
more of a techie person.
Pardon?
Yep, you can put it on a tablet.
Thank you.
Also, is there a website or can you only use an app? I know a lot of people will just redirect you to download an app.
We encourage people to use both interfaces. So have the app on their phone, but then also logging into the desktop interface, which is much more robust in terms of all the different stuff you can see and explore.
Cool. Also, this might be a cool time for people to check out IMAP invasives too. I just always like to plug that. Like when I was in Ithaca, there was a huge piece of a huge patch of Japanese knotweed that actually hadn't been documented. So you can make some really valuable observations there too. So keep an eye out. That's my casual plug for, keep an eye out for invasive species.
Thank you, Haley. Everybody, we so value your time and the wonderful projects that you have coming up for the City Nature Challenge. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.
Happy
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really good work.